You're back? It's that time, isn't it? CSS Images Part 2? Let's go! Welcome back to Coding with Kevin. I hope you guys are having a lot of fun. If you are, hit the subscribe button down below and the notification bell so you can be notified when I upload my next video. Today on Coding with Kevin, we're gonna dive into using the HTML image tag matched with a little bit of CSS. I'm really excited you guys are learning this because as a developer on the front end, you're gonna be able to really excel on your job, being able to manipulate images and just have a lot of fun doing it. So without further ado, guys, let's jump in. All right, picking up where we left off, we have our sheep here in the background. And so we're just gonna comment that out because we're gonna start with something different. Today, we're gonna be covering HTML images section, right? And it's a follow-up. This is our part 2 from the CSS because it's really important to understand both aspects of the CSS side for images and the HTML side for images. So when we're thinking which one do we want to use, we need to, again, figure out, is it a decoration or is it an image that is important to the context of the website? So a decoration is going to be something like a background image where we want it to slide with the web page like we saw last time, or something that's important to the web page is going to be a photo of a person and the text is talking about this person, or it's an image of a place and the context of the website is like, hey, down in this location, boom, image here. That's when you'd want to use an HTML tag. So what I've gone and done is I've attached this URL to the YouTube description, so feel free to grab that. And we're gonna go ahead, refresh this, because we're gonna be putting that image in our HTML website. So images can improve the design and appearance of the web page. Examples down here is it says, okay, you got image, source, alt. Now these are a couple interesting points. The image tag is used to embed an image in a web page. However, it's not technically inserted. They're more linked to web pages. The image tag creates a holding space for the referenced image. Now it is empty. It does contain attributes only, and it does not have a closing tag. That's really important to remember. The image tag has 2 required attributes, which are the source, that's the path to the image, and the alt tag, which specifies the alternative text for the image. So we're already familiar with the source attribute just because it's the same thing as the URL attribute we used for our CSS portion. Okay, so we'll go here to our index.html, and in the first section, let's just type image, enter, and again, thank goodness for VS Code, it autofills the source and the alt tags for us, right? At least the things that we need. So what we're gonna do is that image that you downloaded, go ahead and insert that here. Remember to make sure it's relative to the folder you're working in. I downloaded it and I renamed it coffee cup. So I'm gonna do period / and there it is, coffee cup. I'm gonna hit tab because that's gonna jump us over to the alt tag. And now here, the alternative text is important to describe the image. We want an accurate description of what the image is. So I'm gonna say cup full of coffee. I'm gonna save that. We'll go to our document, we're gonna hit refresh, and holy cats, it's a big coffee cup image. So back in W3 Schools, we're gonna skip the alt attribute section just for a moment because it's gonna talk about our width and our height. And again, we covered this. What is not a good practice is adding a style tag and having a CSS sheet, or inlining styles and having an external CSS style sheet. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and type class, and we're gonna call it coffee capital IMG. Hit save. Go over to our index.css. We're going to delete the body because it's not necessary. Period, COFFEE, capital IMG, opening closing bracket. And we're going to do width of 270 px. Save. Then when we go back to our document, we hit refresh. There we go. Now it's not taking up the entire bloody screen. So that's what we want to do. We want to make sure that we're being very consistent and we're using an external style sheet. And that way when we pass it on to other developers, there's no confusion. So going back up here now to the alt attribute. Remember, it's a required attribute for a couple reasons. If there's an error, if for some reason the image doesn't load, it is going to provide alternative text to display in lieu of that loaded image. So let's see what that looks like here. We'll go back to our document and we'll go back to our HTML. And I'm just going to change this to be error and save it. I don't have any images called error. So when we go back here and we hit refresh, we can see the image doesn't load, but the alt text does. So aside from that, when an image has alt text, even if it does load, again, for accessibility's sake, we want to make sure that anyone can access the internet and have a positive experience. So people who are hard of hearing, hard of seeing, the blind, the deaf, they use screen readers or alternative help to access the internet. And an alt tag in an image, while we can visually see it, will be described to the person using a screen reader. So let's get the image back loaded again. We're going to go ahead and just change that. Actually, Control-Z a couple times. There we go. Back to normal. Hit save, hit refresh, bada boom. So now we can go back and we're going to scroll down, skip a couple of those things because images in another folder. We talked about that. Make sure you have proper folder structure. You can use a URL, much like we did the background image. The only thing you want to be aware of is with a URL, it can change. So if, a month from now, you don't check back in and you use somebody else's image on another website and you linked it via a URL, it could be changed. It could be removed. And you just want to be aware of that. So it's best to actually have downloaded images that you're going to be using. So the image tag can also be used for GIFs. Again, you want to just make sure you have an alt tag there describing what it is. And then this is where things start to get a little fun, using images as a link. So let's do that real quick. Let's use the link that I provided to you in the description. I'm just going to copy it since I got the URL up there anyways. So in our VS Code, we're going to add an A tag. I just typed the letter A and I'm scrolling down to link. I'm going to just highlight that, paste in the link, and then I'm going to hit enter. And I'm going to hit Alt and the up arrow to get the image inside of the link. Okay. Now, one thing real quick, when we are doing a link, we want to open it up in a new tab. 9 times out of 10, that's what you want to do. If it's a link to an external source, you don't want to have the page you're on change to that new URL. It's best practice to keep users on your website. So what we want to do is open it in a new URL. That's typically what you're going to want to do when using links that reference other web pages. So in order to do that, we use the target attribute, and then we do underscore blank. Okay, we're going to hit save, go back to our image, hit refresh, and you can see now I've got a cursor over it, and in the bottom left-hand corner, the URL is there. And when I click it, it opens it up in a new tab, and our web page is still here. So don't forget about that, because that's important to, for user engagement. Make sure they stay on your web page. So finally, we have image floating. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and just undo the A tag. So Control Z a few times to get rid of all that. Awesome. We're going to take this image tag, we're going to cut it, and let's just put it here. That sounds good. Now I'm going to hit save. We're going to go over to our index.css and our coffee image. We'll revisit this in 1 second, but let's see what this does to our document. Hit refresh. So now we can see the image is massive, right? And it's now interrupting our paragraph. That's okay, because we're about to do something. We're going to change this to 50 pixels, hit save, and go back here, refresh, and see that, okay, now it's a much smaller image. Then what we're going to do is we're going to type float, and we're just going to hit enter because left is what we were going for. Hit save, hit refresh, and now you can see something interesting happen. It's no longer here where we put it, although it is linked there. As you can see, I'm highlighting that, but it's all the way to the left. And here's why that's interesting. If we go back to our index.html, I'm going to go ahead and copy this, and I'm going to paste it a couple times in the previous paragraph. So we go paste, 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 paste. Awesome. Hit save. Now when I refresh, we can see that it's starting to wrap around the image. And that's what we want. We want the image to be all the way to the left and not really interrupt the flow of everything else on our web page. Let me just paste a couple more times so we can see a direct impact. There we go. So much like a book, right? When you see the first letter is really big and then the rest of the page kind of wraps around that big letter, that's the impact we want to have here. Now, a quick aside, we can see how everything's really flush against it right now. We can add in our CSS margin right, and we'll do 10 pixels, hit save, back here and hit refresh, and there we go. Now we can see that we've created a little bit of spacing between the image and the word itself. Great, so moving on, we've covered everything for images for that section. Now we're going to go to image map. Now to get us ready for this, we need to go ahead and undo pretty much everything we just did. All right, now we're back. And how I did that, guys, is just I held Control Z and it just rapidly undid everything. So now I hit Control S, save. I think I need to re-add the class back here. Save that, go back to my document, hit refresh. Awesome. Let's go back to the CSS, and we're going to change that to 250, and we'll get rid of these. Perfect. Now, image maps can be a fun thing, although I personally have not worked at a company that uses it. It's probably going to be more for creative companies that I don't know, want to do something more fun with their website or get users to interact a little bit more with their pictures. I could imagine this being used more for teaching websites for children. So if you're maybe building a website that needs to have shapes that are clickable or interactable as like learning guides, or the other thing I can think of is through training courses, websites or companies will have their websites be interactive, right? You need to, click the kite to learn more about what not to do on a windy day. That would be an example of when you would use an image map. So what it is, you essentially create a area of the image that you want to be clickable. So in this example, they're saying, okay, the top right corner of the computer to the bottom right corner of it. Awesome. This is now the clickable area. We're going to be using the example of the circle. That's one of the reasons why I chose the coffee cup with this specific image, is because it's centered, so we don't have to dilly-dally too much about figuring out where it is. And it's coffee. Who doesn't want to click on coffee? I don't know. So we'll go back here to our index.html. We're going to hit enter and we're going to type map. We're going to call it coffee. Okay. And then our image, we're going to do use map. And in order to target the map of coffee, we need to preface it with a hashtag. And then capital COFFEE. And actually, for best practices, let's lowercase that. And how I just did that was I double clicked to highlight the word, Control D to highlight the next word as well. And lowercase coffee. Save. Next, we're going to hit enter and we're going to type area. So there's a couple different area descriptions. There's circle, diamond, polygon, or rectangle. CDPR. We're going to choose the circle. So the coordinates for a circle, we can see here, first locate the coordinate of the center of the circle. All right, so I've done that. And the center of it is going to be 125 by 187.5. Okay. Next, then it says specify the radius of the circle. I already figured that out, and it's going to be 100. So now our href, let's go ahead and just open it back up to the URL we already been using. I'm going to choose that one, put it in there. The alt text is going to be coffee. And again, we're going to do target underscore blank. Because again, we want it to just open up in a new tab. We'll hit save. We'll go back here, hit refresh. And then now, if we hover down here, our cursor doesn't change. But now if we hover over the coffee cup, the cursor changes. Same if we go above, to the side. And if we click it, it opens it up in a new page. And as you can see, in Google Chrome, this black circle here is the outline of the clickable area that we just mapped. So that's pretty fun. I really enjoy it. Again, I don't know many use cases that companies would use that, but it's out there and it's a fun part of HTML and CSS we can use. Like I said, there's other shapes on here. You can experiment with those on your own time, but I would encourage you to. It's fun. It's really cool to see the power of what you can do with HTML and CSS combined. We're going to skip background images because we already did that and it's covering the same exact information. The picture element, this will be a quick run through. We'll do it together, but it's a really useful tool for creating images on different screen sizes. Okay, so it allows us to display different pictures for different devices or screens. And it's pretty simple. We have a picture element that we wrap everything in. Okay, it contains one or more source elements, each referring to different images through the source set attribute. This way the browser can choose the image that best fits the current view and or device. The source element has a media attribute that defines when the image is the most suitable. Okay, so here it says at a minimum screen width of 650 pixels, do this image. At a minimum screen width of 465, do this image, and for everything else, do this image. So pretty much smaller than 465, it'll be the girl. Between 465 and 650, it'll be a car. And then anything bigger than 650 is going to be food, okay? So let's go ahead and try implementing that. We'll type in picture, hit enter, and we're gonna type in source. And you can see here there's a couple options. I'm just gonna do source media. And we're gonna type in 1000 pixels. And then I'm going to do the sheep picture that we have been using, and I've just got that on my clipboard. One thing I did notice is with VS Code for source set, it does not allow prediction of what the path is going to be. Like if I wanted to do sheep, it doesn't recognize that. So what I ended up doing is I just typed in source, and then I did the relative path, and it allowed me to go ahead and copy this relative path to just paste inside the source set. We're going to bring the image up, again by Alt, up arrow. And I adjusted that by hitting Shift Tab. That brought the tab over one. And I'm going to hit Save. So now anything bigger than 1,000 pixels of the width of our browser screen is going to display our sheep. So if we go here into our document and we hit refresh, there's our sheep. But now if we minimize it, so it's a little bit more flexible, if we go this way, still sheep, but then at 1,000, it's the coffee cup. And it retains our clickable area for the coffee cup. Sheep, coffee cup, sheep, coffee cup. So, and this is really important when you're thinking of different devices, like a phone. You're gonna maybe want a smaller image that's gonna not be so high in megabytes to display on a phone, so it downloads quicker. So as a graphic designer, you'll want to create maybe a couple different copies or views of the image so it can better load on certain devices. So a tablet, it might not be a big deal. Still, you could probably have a regular image. But also things are going to jump around. Like as we can see, as we shorten the screen, look at our paragraph tags. They get bigger and bigger and bigger. So that's something you want to account for as a developer, that, okay, so that's going to happen at this screen width. I need to account for that when I'm figuring out the layout or the pictures to make sure nothing goes crazy. But yeah, that's part 2 of our images section. I hope you had fun. Just fun stuff. This is one of the reasons I became a developer, because it's just really cool to see all the different things you can do, manipulate images, click on certain areas. Like, this is cool stuff. So join me next time, guys, when we do part 3 of the W3 Schools CSS tutorial. We'll be moving ahead on the next couple sections. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time.